Welcome into Rounding the Bases, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. My name is Joel Goldberg. Great episode coming up today from the KCAV studios, Kansas City Audio Visual. If you have audio visual needs, check them out, or I'm happy to make that connection at kcav.com. And of course, Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. They have been a sponsor of this show for quite some time. One little piece of housekeeping. I recently was received the honor, I guess I would say, of being a Big Brothers Big Sisters fundraiser for their Most Wanted campaign. So a huge deal, huge honor. So over the next few months, I'm raising money. If you're watching, if you have the ability to throw in even $10, $25, $50, whatever it is, you could text J Gold to 44321. J Gold to 44321. And really looking forward to helping an amazing organization. There are so many incredible organizations, of course, here where I live in Kansas City, around the region, around the country. And I had the chance, it's been maybe a year and a half now, to learn about an organization called Angel Flight Central. And they do amazing work, really helping people that can't get to treatments or doctors or oftentimes in really dire situations. And they do it with an incredible network of pilots that are able to make this happen, oftentimes saving lives and sometimes making dreams come true. And so I was immediately drawn in by the work that they do. And I'm really excited today to be joined by Brendan Sneegas of Angel Flight Central, Director of Operation and Development. Brendan, how are you?
I'm great, Joel. How are you?
I'm doing well. And I know that for you guys, the work never ends. And I know that for many of you, it's a passion and really a part of your lives every day, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. But like everyone else, COVID has changed things. And so I do want to talk about that. But first off, and I hit on the very basics of it. Tell me about Angel Flight Central, what it is and how long it's been around.
It was 25 years ago. This year, actually in August, 25 years ago, that a volunteer pilot or a gentleman south of the plaza in Kansas City met a little 8-year-old boy who was desperately in need of a surgery that was taking place in Cleveland, and the family was not financially able to get this boy there. And so Jim Stevens, our founder, decided to give of his day and take this boy to Cleveland for a surgery. And when Jim was flying back to Kansas City, he was thinking to himself, I have enjoyed this experience so much. I'm blessed to have an aircraft. There has to be more people in Kansas City and throughout the region that are in this little boy's position. So if I gathered a few of my friends, and that was his whole concept. And so that was 25 years ago with that single flight to Cleveland. And here we are now, over 30,000 flights in 25 years. Not only that, but Jim's work that he began 25 years ago was honored 2 years ago when we were inducted into the International Air and Space Hall of Fame for the work we're doing. So what Jim started as a single pilot is now 325 very experienced and highly qualified volunteer pilots who give of their time to get people in need, adults, children, for any reason, to where they need to go for help.
I think one of the things that I love about what you guys are doing, I mean, the obvious, you're helping change, save lives. Sometimes you can't do that, but you're bringing people together at the last moment, whatever it is. And I think what I love about it is that there's so much. I'm a storyteller, and there, every mission that your pilots or your staff are involved in, there's a story, hopefully, and usually with happy endings, maybe not always, but this is heavy stuff. I mean, I've got to imagine that your involvement, and certainly those that have been around a long time, have seen it all, right?
Oh, it's truly amazing. If you turn off the news and just pick up the phone at our office for a day, the experiences that people are dealing with, having the difference between fear and hope being 3 states away from each other, it is truly amazing. From people who are calling us saying, I need to work or I'll lose my insurance. However, I'm in a clinical trial in Houston and I need to be in Houston every Thursday. How do I work but how do I get to Houston every Thursday? And that's happened. A gentleman without a leg who's still trying to work and care for his family needs to get to St. Louis every week. The cancer, the rare diseases. It truly is amazing what people are going through each and every day. And I tell you what, a reality in life is just picking up the phone for a week and listening to what folks are going through. And but the great news is we can fix that with 2 runways. That's all it takes. And our generous pilots, once they see a need, if it's coming through their neighborhood or starting or ending where they live, these guys and gals will drop everything. It's truly amazing to watch them.
Well, and they're the true heroes, right? I mean, you need 2 runways, but you need the plane and the pilot, and that's not going to the airlines and saying, "Hey, can you fly us here?" That is someone volunteering their time and their money, which means that we're talking about, look, if you've got a plane, you've probably done not just the love of flying, but you've probably done pretty well in life. And if you've got a plane where you are willing to donate that gas and donate, everything that goes with it, these have to be men and women with just the biggest hearts. Tell me more about these pilots.
They're all highly qualified. We are very, very stringent when it comes to passenger and pilot safety. And so they have all met a very stringent line of qualifications. They've all been trained and gone through orientation. At that point, they are given access to a very private database that we have, where when we receive calls in the office, we then put the passenger stories into this database and send it out to the pilots. These are men and women who are from the 20s to the 70s. Some of them are retired or still working every day. They just have a passion for flight. The plane might be a part of their business, or it might just be something the family owns. Anything from a small 4-seater to pretty nice jets and everything in between. Most of our pilots are flying 4 to 6 seat single engine aircraft. And so instead of jumping in the plane and heading to have lunch or breakfast somewhere, they're saving their dimes and nickels and looking for people in need. Extremely generous. We're looking at anywhere between $400 and $1,200 per flight per pilot. And some of our pilots will fly anywhere between 25 and 50 flights a year. So if you do the math, these men and women are extremely giving.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the math there, but we're looking at what, 30, 40, 50 grand a year potentially to go out there and just donate their time. But like we talked about before too, they are potentially saving lives. They may not be in the medical field per se, but they suddenly become the equivalent of that ambulance. And I think that a lot of us that work in a city or a suburban or a populated area may take for granted the health care that is available to some and not to others, or the ability to get to a hospital. And I've had Benjamin Anderson, who spoke at your event last year, a year and a half ago, on my podcast before, and he's an executive in a rural part of this country. Well, he was in Southwest Kansas. Now he's in Colorado, rural hospitals. And he happens to have a child that benefited from Angel Flight Central. And I think that for those of us that live like I do in a suburb of Kansas City, and I know people on the coast might say, "Oh, what, little Kansas," or that type of thing. Look, we got everything we need here, but that's not the case for so many people throughout the state or throughout rural areas. So how dire can that get for certain people?
Oh, can you imagine being 8 hours away from care? Yeah, it's and what we're finding, especially during COVID, is it goes both ways. It's not only the rural citizens that are without care or so far from the care they need, but it's also the medical community itself. Well, I know we'll get into this, but ever since COVID, it's the medical facilities in the rural communities that needed us to get the PPE supplies to them because they were being ignored, or the deliveries were being delayed. And so with us, we were able to bring care to them so they could care for their own. I just can't imagine being in the position where your doctor or your cancer treatment is 6 to 8 hours away. The people in the Dakotas I can't imagine. It's those when you have to take an Angel flight to get to a major airport. I mean, that's when you know you're in a rural situation. And insurance is changing quite a bit, where people are there's large brick walls at state lines, and so medical options are not as vast as they were 10 years ago. It's just, my heart goes out for those folks.
Yeah, and I've thought about this before. It's so easy to say, well, then why don't you just move? Well, that's easy to say. That's not easy to do. That also may not be something people want to do.
Yeah,
Who wants to leave the place they call home if they love it, right?
exactly.
And so now maybe it gets to a point where you have no choice, but I just, my heart does ache. And I remember Benjamin, who I mentioned,
Oh,
was featured on CBS Sunday Morning a couple of years back. I remember watching that episode before I even met him. And then when he and I connected, he sent the link and I started to watch it. I said, I saw this before, but it was so heartbreaking to see some of these families with a sick child, with something recurring or debilitating, and having to get up in the middle of the night and drive 4 hours in the dark, single mom or whoever it was,
yeah.
to do that. And it just, it took you right there. It took me right there and made me realize how scary this can be. So the flip side is Angel Flight Central comes in and is able to provide that. And I would guess that every one of these pilots, not to mention staff like you, feel so much fulfillment to be able to potentially give these families a chance.
Oh, it is it to there's two things. Not one is to tell someone who's in dire straits or without hope that there's going to be a hero that is going to land as close as they possibly can to your front door. And then secondly, to tell them when they say, how much is it? To say, oh, it's completely free of charge. And by the way, call us anytime you need us. It's not a one-time thing. If you need to go 100 times, if we can, we'll fly you 100 times. Those are two great moments. And we do. We try to get every plane as close as we can to that person's front door, and then look up the treatment facility they're going to, and look, where is the closest airport that we can get them as close as we can to that treatment.
So we talked about COVID. That's obviously affected everyone, everywhere, everything. Doesn't matter what your beliefs are. Doesn't matter what your politics are. Everyone in some form or another has been affected by this. And I know that's true for you guys too. So first and foremost, let's talk about that from a safety standpoint. And then we'll talk about the fundraiser, because you guys have the most amazing event. And like so many fundraisers and huge events like that, you've been majorly affected. But let's talk first off about the safety end of things, and how has that changed in terms of, because we're talking, I would guess, about potentially high risk people here.
Correct. Yeah, it's COVID slapped us in the face, and it was a tough transition, because first of all, in March it shut us down. Because if you're in a vehicle the size of a mid-sized car, which is basically the size of our aircraft, you can't socially distance. The distance between the pilot and the passenger is less than 6 feet, and so we could not meet those standards right off the bat. And so in March, April, May, we had to take a really hard look in the mirror on the mission of the organization, how we could stay afloat, how we could stay relevant, and as a friend of ours on the West Coast said, we had to stop flying people to care and really take a look at flying care to the people. And so instead of putting people in our planes and flying them to the care they needed, we reversed that and kept pilots alone in their own aircraft and filled them with all of the care that their local community would need, and kind of reversed our mission. And so our planes were full of PPE, breast milk. We were flying for the Minnesota Breast Bank to get breast milk to preemie hospitals that were in need. Plasma is a huge deal right now, and the supply chain for plasma to get to treatment centers was completely disrupted because the commercial airlines shut down. And so the whole plasma supply, thank goodness, they called us. And so our pilots stayed very busy flying plasma to a treatment center or a processing center in St. Louis. So anyway, we changed everything. And then once we got a whole safety plan developed and our pilots agreed to it, we reorientated and trained and opened things back up June 1st to passengers with very stringent guidelines. And thank goodness, here we are in late September, and we have not had any issues. And so we're doing both at this point, not only flying PPE to rural hospitals. Now we're in this whole new thing of flying N95 masks to physicians who are in need of them. So we're filling our planes not only with people but also supplies, and it's been great for the pilots because of course the phone's not ringing as much with people going to medical care, but we've been able to keep our pilots invested in staying in the air. So it's been a really interesting time. And then, of course, like every nonprofit could say right now, the lineup behind me, and we all say that COVID has really kicked us financially because we've had to cancel all the events. And so, it's just a big readjustment period. But you know what? In the end, I think our relationship with a lot of these flying the cargo, I think it's going to be extremely good in the end because we're meeting a lot of people that are learning about us, and we're learning a lot about other organizations and what they're doing. Rural hospitals, the physicians are benefiting. And if that's the new role we're going to play from here on out, well, then so be it. We're ready for it.
Well, there's a pivot there that you guys were able to make. And I'm sure on day one, there's like everyone else that's scrambling of, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We can't stop. So how do we do this? And so you just reversed it, as you said, and now you're still able to make that impact. I mean, it's amazing what happens when you have to get a little bit creative. And I think that's true for all businesses, including nonprofits, that like you either go away or you find a way to push forward.
That's right. Yeah. Situations like this will knock you down if you're not flexible. Yeah.
So let's talk about the big event. And this is one that anyone that's ever been to it, it's a night, it's an event, it's a huge fundraiser. Angel Flight Central's Wine Flight. It's, I went for the first time in, what would that have been? 2018 or 19?
Yeah,
Would have been.
You came
Or
with.
was it this year? Was it 19? It was 19.
Yeah, November of 2019.
Yeah, I was sitting there saying that it was a year and a half ago, but that's what it feels like at this point, right?
Well, it's 2020. Yeah, it's 2 years, basically what we're dealing with this year.
Yeah, I mean because that's another world, a world that we can't really remember right now.
Correct.
But it was an amazing, and anyone that's ever been is like, well, yeah, we know what you're talking about, Joel, because we've done this over and over again. But it was my first time. The Di Marias invited us, and so we went as their guests, and I just was blown away. First off, it's a fun event, right? If you enjoy wine, that's a lot of fun. And then the presentations and the speakers, and I mean, it pulled at your heartstrings. You guys did a great job, obviously.
Oh, thank you.
Heartstrings leading the purse strings and all that. So just give me an idea, if you can, of what in general that the amount of money that'll bring in on a yearly basis, and then let's talk about the pivot.
You got it. Yeah, Wine Flight is the backbone of our whole financial budget. Last year, it brought in over 5 months of our funding, which was just truly unbelievable. Record-setting crowd. If any of you don't know Doug Frost, Google him, because the man, when it comes to wine, is just unreal. And we have benefited so greatly off of that gentleman's heart. It was 16 years ago that we learned about Doug, and Kansas City was benefiting from what was called the Jefferson Cup wine competition, where vineyards all over the United States from every state were sending in their wine to be judged in Doug's competition. And then what was happening at the end of the night was they were just throwing the wine down the sink, and we're talking hundreds of bottles of wine. And thank goodness Doug learned about us and thought, why don't, instead of us throwing that wine down the drain, why don't we let people drink it? So 16 years ago, and we were invited to sell tickets. And so once that wine competition got done, we transferred all of the wine into a ballroom and sold tickets and allowed the general public to come in. And well, you saw it. I mean, it literally is hundreds and hundreds of bottles of wine that people can enjoy from all across the country. Doug and his staff are there to explain, and I tell you what, and we use it as an opportunity to honor our pilots, kind of a thank you to them, and hand out some annual awards. And then, of course, it's a great education piece where we just have a few moments to describe to the crowd what we do and how we do it. And so anyway, it's been a really, really fun night. I'm glad you got to come to it. It truly is amazing. It's affordable. We've been told that for the price and for what you get, it's reasonable. It's just too bad that COVID has shut us down. It truly is. It's sad.
So with that said, shut down, but not stopping, obviously. And so you're
Yes.
going to make that pivot this year to a virtual tasting?
That is right. We are going to go virtual, and so what we've done is we're going to have a virtual. Doug will be there, and if you want to join us on our Facebook page, or continue to check in at angelflightcentral.org, we will keep you informed of pairings that Doug is going to recommend, depending on what you're drinking or what your favorite wines are. Doug will suggest some tastings for you that night. It'll be short and sweet, probably 45 minutes. But just like at Wine Flight, we're just going to take a few moments to celebrate the last 25 years and all of those people who have worked so hard to get us to where we are today. We'll introduce you to some of our passengers. Doug will be there to talk about wine. And then we're going to have a pretty nice little silent auction going on the side that'll be open until midnight that night on November 20th. So you can bid all the way up till midnight. And if you are in the position to do so, there'll be a couple opportunities to financially support the organization. And of course, in 2020, there is not a nonprofit that could not benefit from a giving soul. So we'd love to have you join us that night, November 20th at 7:00.
And so November 20th at 7:00. And for more information, you could just go to the website, angelflightcentral.org. And if you click on events, you'll see it right there. All the information, virtual tasting, 7 to 7:45. All you need is a smart TV, a phone, a computer, a tablet. And so if you have one of those, you could jump in and be a part of it. And you make the best of it, right, Brendan?
That's
You
right.
make the best of it. And the other side to that too, and I noticed that this night, and it's not a surprise. I always think, like, wherever we live, we always want to say, our people are the best. And of course, here in Kansas City, we feel that way. And you should feel that way, whatever community you're in. But the support that I know you have had from this community and beyond. So this is a night that people look forward to. This is a night out for a lot of folks, a date night, so to speak, and chance to catch up with people and friends and be entertained and have some good wine. So they could still do that within their homes, but I'm guessing
Sure.
that the response is going to be really positive because people, if they have the ability, are going to want to help.
Oh, we hope so. Yeah, that already, Joe, you would not believe the sponsors that we have heard from that have helped us in the prior years are already on board this year. And so, yeah, it's just amazing that in such a bleak time that there are still such great supporters, not only in Kansas City but beyond. It's truly amazing. We couldn't
Mike
do it
My,
without them.
Mike Meyer made a comment, and he runs a Band of Angels. Your organization is a great one. Awesome to hear you pivot and just keep grinding. The world needs you, and I couldn't agree with that anymore. So I wanted to, as we wind down, I wanted to see if there are any stories for you that I'm sure they all, to some extent or another, pull at your heartstrings. But Have there been any over the years that just have stayed in your head?
Well, yeah, there are several. Probably one of the greatest things, the blessings I've had in my life is to be a dad. And so I always, the dads pull at my heartstrings. And I gave you a couple examples earlier before, because I truly do think of these guys all the time. But there was a gentleman here. We have a little town called Roland Park, and he had stage 4 liver cancer, and he was invited to participate in a clinical trial, but he had to be in Houston every single Thursday. And so when he got to know us, we got to know him. Think, how are we going to do this? So we just decided to put every single Thursday, put him down, put it out there, share it with our friends down south, so they could share with Texas pilots and Oklahoma pilots, and we got his story out. And over the years, if the weather was decent and pilots were signed up, we got him to Houston every Thursday, and he continued to work. He worked Monday through Wednesday, rested on Friday and the weekend. But I think in the end, we had him on a plane, I believe it was 186 times. And what was cool about him is he surprised us. We had a local golf tournament, and almost every single one of our passengers, we never meet face to face because we're only talking to them by phone. He showed up at our golf tournament to play with stage 4 liver cancer. Wow. And not only that, he won the closest to the whole competition. So over the years, it was a joy. He's passed away, but gosh, just amazing. Not only on his part to fight and fight and fight for years, but also the generosity of volunteer pilots to support him every single Thursday. From Kansas City to Houston, Texas. It was just an amazing accomplishment. And there was another dad who had 3 children, young kids. And this gentleman had a very aggressive bone, rare cancer that had taken one of his legs. He was amputated and still working. And he had to be in St. Louis for a treatment every Friday. And so we'd pick him up in Gardner, Kansas, and get him back. There's a dad right now in Independence, Missouri, who is trying to run a business, but he has to see a physician in Minneapolis. And so when he got to know us, he was having to take a week off of work because it was so hard on his body to travel by car, receive the treatment, travel back. By the time he got back, he needed several days to recover. So he learned about us, and we found a pilot who flew him to Minneapolis, and he sat on the runway. And Mike went and got his treatment, came back to the airport where the pilot was sitting there waiting. We had him home the same day at 8:00 at night, and he went to work the next day because he didn't have to put a lot of effort into it. So he got 4 additional days of work, and a pilot, it made that pilot's day. It truly is amazing. The children that we get to meet, oh my gosh. And when COVID's not happening, we spend the summer flying over 200 kids to special needs camps, kids with AIDS and cancer and burns. If we can get a kid to a special needs camp, we're going to do it. And it's a great opportunity for our pilots to meet some of these kids, especially from inner cities who don't have a lot of opportunity. And get them there. The Kansas City Royals are great supporters of our camp flights. They sponsor a number of our arrangements for our camp flights during the summertime. It's just domestic violence victims who are just out of hope. They're clearly out of hope, and they call us and say, "I really want to get out of this shelter and get back to family," and they're scared. They don't want to leave the shelter because they feel like they're going to be susceptible to more abuse. And so our pilots will meet them confidentially and we'll get them to safety. Nobody has to know a thing. So I tell you what, you name a situation, it truly is mind-boggling. Not only what people are going through, but that there is an army of men and women who are just blessed to help.
Yeah, it's a good reminder too that it's not just rural. It could be anyone that can't get anywhere because of, like you described with that man from Independence, or these amazing kids that just need that opportunity or that ability to get away from a bad situation. So across the board, it's incredible. So last thing, there's a good chance that when the time is right, you guys could play a part here with COVID, right?
Oh yeah, we definitely we got a little announcement yesterday that to be on the lookout, because I think we're going to be able to play a major part in once a vaccine is available, to be a part of that transportation chain, and deliver the vaccine to rural communities and rural hospitals. That will certainly keep our pilots extremely busy should they wish to participate. That'll be great to be a part of that, and instead of rural communities waiting a week or two to get the opportunity for a vaccine, maybe it's just a couple hours, and pilot can load the plane up and really making an effect on that community.
It's beautiful work. It's heroic. It's making an impact. It was before COVID. It is during COVID in different ways. It will be after COVID, whenever that one is, or maybe even a part of helping COVID go away or be more safe. So whatever that situation is in terms of the vaccine, I know that you guys will do everything that you can. Again, a reminder to everyone that if you want to be involved, donate, help out, attend virtually Wine Flight, you can check out all the information at angelflightcentral.org. Brendan, to you, to everyone at Angel Flight Central, to all of those pilots who are heroes, those men and women, the hundreds of volunteers that you have, thank you so much for all of the work, and looking forward to seeing it continue no matter what the situation is. Really appreciate the time today.
Joe, thank you so much. It was an honor.
The feeling is mutual. Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you.
All right, that is Brendan Sneegas, the Director of Operations and Development for Angel Flight Central. That's going to do it for another episode of Rounding the Bases, coming to you from KCAV Studios, Kansas City Audiovisual. If you have audiovisual needs, you can check them out. And a big thanks to Enterprise Bank and Trust, hashtag no stopping you. That's going to do it. I'm Joel Goldberg. Hope to catch you again next time on Rounding the Bases.